What's going on, everybody? This is Uncle Drew, and we are back with another monthly reading wrap up. And this time we'll be tackling the month of April. And over the last month or so, I've kind of slowed down on my reading, but I really like that when I travel, I'm traveling with a book. So I'm reading on the plane, I'm reading at the airport while I'm people watching, I'm reading while I'm just chilling around the house in early mornings and late nights more than I am in my own space. And so, honestly, when I travel and when I'm on vacation, that's the time for me to dig deeper into books, into reads, into some authors that I usually don't do when I'm just at home or just in my natural habitat or environment. Force myself to read more on the plane and just in certain places. And I am happy with the result because I knocked out, one or two books in a couple days' time, which usually takes me about a week and a half, based upon what my schedule is, what my work is like. But I want to go ahead and share these books for April's reading wrap up as I lose my voice. Excuse me, and we'll just leave that one in there. But I'm excited to get into these reads and let you know what I've been reading and what you should probably check out. Now, the first book we have here is So Much Blue by Percival Everett. In this book, I wanted to read a lot more of Percival's work this year after reading Erasure and also um, after reading Erasure and then also James, which is was it Prelude? Precursor? I don't know, which is something after Huckleberry Finn, which talks about and follows a Negro James. But I wanted to get more into his writing. I know he has more than 25 or 30 books. And this year, one of my goals is to read more Black authors, to read more works of fiction, and this book falls in line with that. And so I read this book while I was traveling. I knocked it out in about 3 or 4 days. I liked it. It was a solid read. It was a solid read. There were times that, with no spoilers per se, that I'm going to put into it. But there were times where they go off and they start speaking in tangents, speaking French. And if you didn't notice, I don't know. I know a little bit of French, but I'm not trying to read books that have a different language in it where I gotta feel like I'm not an avid or a up to par reader, I guess you could say. So at times I want to read those words, but also I want to skip over them because I'm like, yo, I don't know what any of these words mean at all. But good solid book. His writing is always so good and so vivid. I really liked this book, how they bounce back and forth, or is pretty much over three time periods. Pretty much the past, the present, and even further past, I guess you could say. It talks about a couple of times of him traveling over to Paris with his wife at the time for an art exhibit. And he met this young lady that he begins courting and talking to and builds a special bond with. And then also a time back before that, which kind of talks about why he's kind of so closed in and held up as a man. And it's those two things are very, very important to look at as you look at the overall story and things that are going on within his family, with his children, with his wife, with the way that he goes about his work, and a secret that he is hiding for a work that he is completed, but he doesn't want to show anybody and keeps it under wraps. So it's nice because each chapter they kind of or he kind of just goes between and gives you a different kind of scenario with everything that's happening, building up the story of when he traveled to these places and what's going on currently, and the situation that pops up with his family and daughter as well. I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. Like I said, it's a solid read. It was real quick. I really don't, I don't often pick up, 200. I think this book is about 230 pages. I don't often pick up 200-page books, and not to say I do it on purpose or that I avoid them. But I usually go with denser reads, and I'm noticing that about myself. But also now I'm allowing myself to just pick up books and read for fun a little bit more than I would have used to. Like I said, reading more fiction now, letting my mind wander, helping myself think critically on situations that aren't real, but hey, what if they were? Or feeling empathy for other characters in stories. And so this book is 3 out of 5. If you like Percival Everett's work, if you haven't read it yet, put it on that list. Don't be too quick to get to it. But I do think it is a solid read, is a quick read, something that a normal reader might knock out in, I say, 5 to 7 days, if not less. But like I said, it goes quickly. The chapters aren't super long. And the thing that I get from it most of all is to handle your past trauma and heal from stuff, but also being open to talk about stuff to others and admitting when you have transgressions. So, once again, that is So Much Blue by Percival Everett. And as we go along, we'll jump to another author that needs no introduction, the great Toni Morrison in Tar Baby. Like I said, this year we're reading more fiction. We're reading more Black authors. We're diving into that. We are going into that head first and not apologizing for it. And the great Toni Morrison needs no introduction. She's done great, great work with great, great writing. Passed away some years ago now, but there are a lot of people that are still reading her work feverishly. And the words and the description and the vividness still just jump right off the page to the reader. Now, this book, I decided to pick this up for my book club, and I'm going to do a book review or a book club read with my homegirl Shelby, one half of the League of Readers, pretty soon here. And one thing I really like about Toni Morrison's work is that, like I said, her words are just so vivid. You could be reading the story, and all of a sudden you'll go off into a tangent, and you'll read it, and you'll be like, "Yo, what the hell did I just read? Like, I have no clue what I just read." And I think that's the great thing about a great author or a great writer. They keep you reading something, and low key in your mind, you're like, "I don't even really know, is she talking about this relationship, or is she talking about this other thing that she kind of wove into this?" And I figure that's what makes Toni Morrison just such a great writer, is a lot of the things you have to figure out for yourself, or she's going to give you a lot of description for things to handle and to take on and to figure out yourself. And so in this book, we pretty much have a family who's rich, who's on an island, and they pretty much, there's some, without going too much into it, because I know there's a lot of people that have read Toni Morrison and know what kind of her books are like. Um, but there's this family on the island, and there's some trauma and some healing that needs to go on within that family. There's a family secret that others know about, but then also there's this guy who they discover in a closet, and surprisingly enough, the owner of the house, or the head of the house, takes him in, gives him refuge, feed him, talk to him, treats him like the family. That he ends up liking this girl that's staying there. And sorry, I'm not going to give everybody the names because I'm just going off of what I know on my mind right now. And long story short, we see this love story begin to develop. And we see that this young lady who the young man takes a liking to this lady, a young lady, who is a model who travels around the world and gets to do all these fun things and make great money. You're trying to see, or they try to see if this relationship can work. Other people don't agree with it, but it's also something, just finding the beauty in something or someone or something in that relationship. And so, not going too far into it because we're going to talk about it in book club. But only other book that I've read from Toni Morrison, and this is the reason why I said I need to pick up more books by her, was The Bluest Eye. And I think I read that so long ago that I couldn't even tell you what it's about. Was probably a little bit too young to be reading it. I think I read it in my 20s. And like I said, Toni Morrison for me is a real tough read, only because there are times that you're like, I don't know what the heck is going on right now. But I do give her props, because one thing I like about an author, them putting in words that I don't know or vocabulary to help me grow my vocabulary, is something I really appreciate. And through this book, there were times that I highlighted words that I had no clue what they meant. And I was able to decipher them based upon where they were in the sentence or the paragraph or what they were describing. But it's moments like this where I'm like, okay, I'm reading the right stuff because I have somebody who's continuing to educate me as a young man and continuing to give me words and tools to be able to express myself in a beneficial way. So, once again, that is Tar Baby, wrong side of the book. That is Tar Baby by Toni Morrison. And just be on the lookout for the book review soon with myself and Shelby, who is one half of the League of Readers. And finally, we have what looks to be my favorite book of the year. And I do not say that lightly, because right now we're on what, 9 books that I've read this year. But I think this book takes the cake, because if you know me, you know I love a good story. You know I love to be educated. You know I love a little bit of history on exactly why we got to where we are in the world today. And this book gives just that. And I think it's very And I think it's very beneficial by what's going on in the world and in politics right now. What's going on with a certain president that's running this country and how it's been established on political sides between Republicans and Democrats. And so that book is When Crack Was King by Donovan X. Ramsey. And now I've seen this book all on social media, a bunch of people posting it over the last couple months. And that's the thing I like about social media, being on threads, being on Instagram, is that you see a lot of people reading a book that you might think about reading or that you've already read. And it gives you that affirmation that, like, okay, well, a lot of people are picking this book up, or my algorithm is just popping right now and I'm getting what I need to get. But I saw this book a couple times, and one thing I like about books is sometimes the cover can pull you in. So already with the words "when crack was king," I already know they're going to be talking about the epidemic, the crack epidemic, and drugs in the United States. And I got the gist of that by just seeing the book and kind of knowing a little bit about our history. But reading this book, Donovan did such a great job weaving in some stories of, I think it's four individuals that he goes and interviews for their life story, and all this stuff in here. And of course, I want to fact check some stuff like always, but it's no surprise that we find out or discover that, the government played some role in getting drugs into the United States to then make a war on drugs, but then, planting them in Black communities. I've always been a believer of that. But outside of that, getting the humanization of people that have gone through the crack epidemic and it played a big role in their lives, whether their parents were affected, whether they themselves were affected in a multitude of ways, whether that was using the drug, whether that was selling the drug, whether that was doing jail time behind drugs. It really brings a humanization aspect to these families and the people that run into this mess. And just me knowing what I know about crack or heroin or cocaine, I learned a lot more just on the inception of it, where it came from, when it started coming into the United States, when it started affecting our communities for Black and Brown people, what that did for the White House and for political campaigns for Republicans and Democrats moving forward. That's why we have a lot of people locked up in jails. That's why, we have, I guess you could say, better drug and treatment programs to this day. Things like, the clean needle exchange in high traffic neighborhoods that are big on drug use. But also just looking at this book, I found so much information and so much knowledge that I'm able to take with me, about this certain period of time, about kind of what triggered it, what helped push it along. Presidents like Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon, who were real big on, the war on drugs in America and what they made that look like, weaponizing that through, news outlets and channels and what they did. But through reading this whole story, I just get a better sense of things that are going on today, of whether you're talking about Republicans or Democrats, how they make a lot of promises that they can't really keep, but leading up to the election and to get them elected, they'll make those promises. And when they're in office, none of this stuff will be done. But it showed me a lot about where our tax dollars go as well. A lot of that money is behind the, what I want to say, the police force, or for policing in neighborhoods, and not enough of that money goes to education or hospitals or rehabilitation programs to help people get clean. And we'd rather throw them in jail, make these big laws, that can help put people behind bars for a very long time. And a lot of time, those people are our people. And so, anybody that knows anything, Black people make up about 25 or 30% of the population in the United States, if that. And we are extremely overpopulated or overcompensated for in the area of jails, which is up to about 60 or 70%. So, how do you have 30% of the population, but 60% of the population in jail are Black people? That doesn't make sense proportionally. So, but this book was a great read. I gave it 5 stars, start to finish. It's about 300 something pages. I couldn't put it down. I enjoyed, I highlighted, I marked, I looked up. There's a lot of stuff in this book that you will heavily enjoy because it is a great book. It's something that teaches you about the history of America, teaches you about where things went wrong, teaches you about the government, and how they turn their eye or their head to some things, and other things they are hell bent on making sure that you knew that they were the people that to right this wrong or to kind of help this move along. This is a good book to read. It'll help kind of bring a little bit more clarity of what's going on in the world today, what the president is doing through news outlets and channels and weaponizing that, and pretty much just flat out lying to people sometimes. So, once again, that is When Crack Was King by Donovan X. Ramsey. You'll love it. You'll enjoy it. You won't be sorry. And if you are sorry, or if it doesn't work out and it doesn't isn't as good as you thought it was, holla at me and maybe we can talk. But other than that, I'll probably leave you on red. So outside of that, When Crack Was Queen, King, great book. So far right now, to the 9 books I read, it is in first place. And so those books are the books that I finished already. And there's sometimes where I just hit a lull in books, or based upon how the book is, I might slow down on it a little bit. I I wasn't one of those people that read multiple books at the same time until recently. And I try to read an ebook and I try to read a physical book. And sometimes when a book slows me down, I'll start on another book that seems a little bit more my speed, or just a little bit more can grab my attention a little bit more than others can. And so we started this book way back in February for Black History Month. It's called Introducing Bert Williams. It's about the first America's first black star who did blackface. And I thought it would be great to read for Black History Month. I'm still going to finish it. I have a little bit of a problem on having DNFs, did not finish. And so I think there's a lot of history in this book that's going to help me, or that's just going to give me a little bit more knowledge to move along and continue to do what I do, which is educating people. But I'm probably on, I think I'm on about page 80. I'm on about page 80, and this book has about a little bit over 300 pages. So we're going to aim to get this book knocked out in April. And I'm sure we can do that. We got a lot of time. We're ahead on books that we're reading. So I just need to finish this. I really dislike starting something and not finishing it. It's the ADHD in me, it's the ADD in me that will not allow that. And the book has to be really, really bad or horrible. And this book is not bad or horrible. It's just moving a little bit slow for me. And so I'll focus on doing this. And with the reading wrap up, I want to talk to you guys about the books that I've read, but I also want to talk to you about the books I'm reading or struggling to read, because a lot of the times we make it seem like we're just zooming through books, no problem, knocking them out. And in reality, sometimes you run into books and you're like, I'm not really digging this one, or this one's kind of hurting me a little bit, but not going to give up on it. Still going to keep pushing through. Once again, that's Introducing Bert Williams. And I don't even know who the author is. Oh, by Camille F. Forbes. And last but not least, like I told you, trying to read more fiction, trying to read more Black authors, but this book is actually not fiction. This book is by Colston Whitehead. It's called The Noble Hustle. Beef, oh, not beef, poker, beef jerky, and death is what it says on the cover. And I've read a couple of Colston's books, like the Nickel Boys. I like the Nickel Boys. I've read the Harlem Shuffle. I was going to say Hustle. I've read the Harlem Shuffle, and I've also read the Intuitionist and Sag Harbor, and I might say one more, but his writing has eluded me in a way. I like some of his reads, and some of his other reads are real boring and dull. Like I wasn't digging Sag Harbor. But this book, not gonna say I'm gonna dig it, but I thought it might have been fiction, but it's actually nonfiction. So it talks about him learning the game of poker in the matter of a couple months, because he was given this opportunity that I think it was a news outlet or an organization was going to stake his, what am I trying to say? That an organization was going to stake his buy-in for the World Series of Poker to represent his country. And he's from a small country, and I cannot name the country. Not going to try on here for it to get immortalized and for you guys to clown me forever. But he was pretty much going to go represent his country in the World Series of Poker, and he was also going to write about the experience. So that experience is this book. And so I don't know much about poker. I'll play here and there at a casino. Don't really have any homeboys that play, but it's always something that's excited me or enticed me, because It is a game of psychology and tells, and like they say, having a poker face. I just started this book and I am about on page 65. And this is another short, like I said, 200-page read. But Coastal Whitehead does a good job in the way that he writes. And the way that he writes is giving you a little bit of fun, jokes, and wittiness, and then also just being able to get you some knowledge and education behind stuff as well. So there are some reads of his that totally missed the mark with me myself personally, and there's other reads that I read of him that are really on point that I really, really like. So with that being said, I might just need to stick with him and his writing on fiction because I feel like that's really on point for me. And I want to say he only has a couple nonfiction books. So I've messed around and read nonfiction, or the Sag Harbor book was actually, I think, him talking about or discussing his childhood. So it's not really fiction, it's not really nonfiction, it's kind of, so but anyway. But this book, too early to really tell what it's hitting for. It's good. I don't do I need to say that? It's too early to tell what it's hitting for. Take out the part of it's good. It's interesting. It's interesting that he got this opportunity where somebody was gonna stake his claim, not stake his claim, where somebody was gonna front his buy-in for the World Series of Poker just for him to enter this underworld to write a book about his experience in doing it, being a pretty novice poker player, where before this he played with friends for small pots, $1 or $2, maybe up to five, where it really doesn't matter to now really it mattering you walking into a tournament or a competition where there are millions of dollars at stake and there are winners and losers. So, once again, that is A Noble Hustle by Colson Whitehead. And that will wrap up my April reading wrap up with what I've been reading or what I've read, what I'm currently reading. And I'll catch up with you guys next time and talk about the books that I will read, because I'll probably read about 3 or 4 books this month. So May should be a very interesting month for everybody. I hope you tune in. I hope you're reading. I hope you're picking up books. And I hope you are educating yourself. Stay healthy.